What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Progressive Action TV. I am your host, Tramel Thompson. We have a very serious show today. We're going to be talking about this suspected MRSA outbreak that's happening on New York City Transit property, specifically speaking in subways. We're going to have two special guests on today. But before I get into that, I want to touch on a couple of things real quick. Maybe just one thing. Um, Shout out to the PBA. They got their tier 3 20-year pension reform into play. Now their tier 3 and our tier 6 is similar, right? Their tier 3 and our tier 6 is similar, right? Now they got it to pass the Senate and the Assembly. The next step is for Governor Hochul to sign it. This will be huge if they could get this passed, right? It'd be huge. Now, I don't want to waste too much time. We are live tonight. I need for everyone, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, please make sure that you share this out. This is going to be one of our very important shows. And I don't want to waste too much time. So right now, let me introduce my two guests. We have construction flagger Martinez. We have construction flagger Sosa. Welcome to the show, fellas. How y'all doing today?
Well,
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
absolutely.
I mean, no problem. You know, this is a very important topic. This is a very important show. We're going to be discussing this whole MRSA situation. And actually, Mr. Martinez tested positive for MRSA. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. But I want you guys to introduce yourselves to the people that's watching. Starting with Martinez. How long you been working on the job? You know, we can start there.
So my name is Sammy Martinez. I've been working with MTA for about 3 years, just coming up August. I have 1 year on the road and about a year and a half in flagging.
Got it. Mr. Sosa.
Construction flagger Sosa. Been total time in TA 11 years. Started off as a CTA for 3 years. Was promoted as a conductor about 8 years, and been in construction flagging. Would be a total of 6 years coming up this June.
Cool. Now, I want to touch a little bit about the issues in flagging. You know, of course, we're going to talk about MRSA, which is a biological hazard in flagging. We have physical hazards in flagging, and I just want to give the people an idea of what flaggers face every day when they go out there to do their jobs. I want to start with Sosa.
Um, Hazards that we deal with on a constant basis would be, besides the obvious, which is working under live track conditions for the most part. We have used hypodermic needles that's technically on the roadbed, infectious waste, 9 times out of 10 at places where we need to access the roadbed. Um, you're talking about having contractors, while they're doing their jobs. Sometimes it's could be asbestos, it could be silica, it definitely could be lead. It's a lot of things that we deal with on a consistent basis.
Got it. How about from your viewpoint, Sammy?
So I also view the same points. Not also mentioning EDPs, emotionally disturbed people that we constantly dealing with on the roadbed, on the platforms, people threatening us, people getting upset because we're slowing down trains. They see the orange helmets and they get tight.
Got it. Now, what brought us here today is this whole situation with MRSA and Sammy. I want to start with you because you actually tested positive for MRSA. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Um, when did you start first exhibiting symptoms of MRSA or something? You noticed that something was wrong.
So I actually didn't know what MRSA was. I had no idea about the terminology, about anything that had to do with MRSA. Back in about Octoberish, Novemberish, I started noticing I was getting breakouts. And these breakouts of pimples weren't like your typical pimples that most people get. These were getting really inflamed. And I'm a picker, and you will see me touch my face a lot. Um, I'll start to pop them because they get so swollen that they hurt my face. And once I do, it will get inflamed. And it will be full of pus. Like a lot of pus will come out of it. Sometimes blood will come out of it, and it will start leaving these scars. So if you look at my face, I have all these brown stains, which is what actually led me to going into the doctor. Was these markings that I had on my face.
And when did you first start noticing? What year, what month?
So this is back in October-ish, November-ish of 2024. I started noticing these different type of pimples.
So October, November 2024.
Right.
Um, at what point did you decide to seek help when you noticed that these weren't your regular type of pimples?
So I decided to go in April. I will make a joke with my wife all the time, and I'll tell her, I said, I'm 40 now. I was 39 at the time.
April of what year? Because we want to just make sure we
So
got the
this
right
was
timeline.
April 7th of 2025. I had went to
Okay.
the dermatologist because I was saying that I was getting these pimples, and I'm like, I'm 39 years old, and I'm getting puberty. I'm hitting puberty like if I was a
Mhm.
teenager. It just didn't make sense. So I got a referral. I went to the dermatologist on the 7th, and she did a skin culture. I originally had just went to deal with these scars that I was getting. The pimples, I just figured it was just regular pimples, maybe something that I was eating, maybe the greasy food. I didn't think anything of it. Maybe because being on in the subways is so dirty, so I figured maybe my face is getting oily and dirt from the tracks. So when I went on the 7th, she did a skin culture. She said that it didn't look normal. So she wanted to do a skin culture. She did so. The next day, she called me back with the results that I had MRSA.
Mm. What was your next step after you found out that you had MRSA?
So I actually still at the time didn't know what it was. She made it very adamant. She was very adamant on me taking meds. I told her that I was gonna get the meds the next day, and she seemed that she was upset. She was like, "No, you have to get them today. You should have been taking that like yesterday." So I was like, "All right." At that point, I still didn't know what it was. I went, I got my prescription, I started taking them. I was still going to work.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't until my last day of work was April 10th, 2025. And the reasoning why I had even made this an issue was because I was scheduled to do a respirator class the following week. For a respirator class, you need to shave and you need to get fitted for the mask. My dermatologist said that I couldn't shave, even though I don't have a big beard. She said that if I shave, it was going to be a complete breakout and it was going to be uncontrollable. So I had called somebody for the union and I asked them if it was something that it was possible for me not to get the respirator qualifications. I didn't want to get kicked out of flagging, so that was my fear, getting kicked out because I wasn't going to get, respirator qualified. He said he was gonna call me back and with the information, and he called me back, but he called me back with Mr. Sosa, and it was telling me how important MRSA was and how dangerous it is.
So, so Sosa was the one who really told you how dangerous MRSA was.
Yes, he is. Yes, he did.
All right. So Sosa, when you found out that Sammy had MRSA, what was your reaction?
My reaction was wow, like it took me by surprise, just like how most of the viewers right now commented in regards to it. Um, I knew from hearing about it how, because I do research on certain things. I remember hearing about certain things in that regards to it and how bad it could become, especially if it becomes sepsis in the bloodstream, which in terms becomes once the it's inflamed, the sepsis goes into the bloodstream. It can turn into Pneumonia, which at that point, if it turns pneumonia, it can actually kill you, and even if it turns into a flesh-eating virus, we know that it can turn completely and utterly deadly. So my immediate response from that point was, let me contact you, Tramel Thompson, and also Mr. Zani Butts. And I basically called y'all, got y'all on a conference call, and we basically try to help Mr. Martinez as much as we possibly could.
Now, Sammy mentioned that he first started exhibiting symptoms of October 2024, and he went out of work April 2025. Did you guys work around each other in between that time before he had to confirm MRSA?
Yes, definitely, I could say yes.
And would you say the same thing, Sammy?
Yeah, definitely. We have the dates marked down on I take notes every day every time I have a job, and me and him have worked together several times.
Got it. And for people who don't know, I've never worked flagging, but I know that flaggers are like their own community. So when you guys see each other, you greet each other, you give each other fives and things like that. So um it would make sense that if one person have it, possibly someone else could have it and not take it serious because when people think of MRSA, they think of the most egregious type of symptoms, the big bumps with the blisters, and you had acne. You thought it was
Right,
you thought that you cracked a joke with your wife like, "Hey, I'm about to turn 40 and I'm going through puberty right now.
right,
What's going on?" So you didn't have the severe case. You
right.
just thought that your skin was breaking out, and you guys can answer this better than me. Um, Flagging, working in those tunnels, it's nasty. You got rats, you
Definitely.
got all types
Hmm.
of things going on. So would your face breaking out or you getting bumps alarm you in this type of title that you're in?
No, not at all. I have a Clearasil pads in my car for that reason. So every time I get out of work, I will try to clean my face, and it will be completely black. That Clearasil pad will be black. I will have to use two or three of them to clean my face. So I
Wow,
figured it was just that. I figured it was just because of the tracks, and maybe that's the reason why I'm breaking out. Um, Maybe the clogged pores. So I really didn't have any idea that it was what it was.
got it. So the doctor tell you you got MRSA. You speak to Sosa. Sosa get us all on the phone with each other. At some point you had to tell the MTA.
Right. Yeah.
So tell us what happened there.
So, like I said, the only reason I even brought it up to the MTA because I honestly didn't know that it was contagious. I didn't know, I had no information about what it was. Um, so it was because I had to get respirator qualified. And I had to shave for that. From there, the whole process is still going on. I called in sick into further notice on the 10th um of April 2025, and I've been off of work since. I had went to the union one time, and the guy politely kicked me out. Because he was like, I shouldn't be there because I'm completely contagious, and he took the papers away from me and told me to go back home. And ever since, I've been doing everything through the phone and emails and scanning documents and stuff.
Did you speak to any doctors from the MTA, any OHS people, MAC people, anyone?
So I did speak to a superintendent. He helped me at first. He helped me do all the documents, put in the IUD in. I submitted it to him, and then from there, I continue it every step that I could. I spoke to somebody for the union. He sent me the information for Corvell. Corvell's giving me, well, not really Corvell's giving me a hard time. At this moment, not too many people, providers are taking Corvell. So when you call the number for Corvell, is a nurse that picks up, and she tries to book you with office. Every office that she has tried to book me in doesn't take Corvell as a provider. So she told me to go to a city MD. The city MD saw me, but they said they couldn't do nothing for me. So he just did like a little swab on one of my pimples that I had in my face, and called it a day, and told me that he was going to try to book me an appointment with the infection and disease clinic. but they don't take Corvel either. So he was like, "No, don't worry about it. You could just take your regular insurance." And I was trying to explain to him that it's a workers' comp situation. It has to be through the workers' comp, and he said they don't take workers' comp. So
You
right
could
now, I'm kind of
actually
like,
no,
yeah.
you could actually use your regular insurance if the comp is not working. You can use your regular insurance.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So, did any doctors from the MTA, did anyone call you to say, "Hey, can you give us all the locations that you worked at?"
No, definitely not.
Nobody never did
Nobody.
that. That's
Nope.
interesting. That's interesting.
Nobody.
So, we mentioned earlier in the broadcast that you and Sosa did work with each other. I don't know how many times while you were infected with MRSA, but Sosa, did you ever get sick or feel funny any given time after you worked with Martinez?
Not so much after I worked with Martinez. I would say I started feeling sick after working a particular account, especially at the location between Parsons and 169 Hillside.
But before you even answer that, I mean, before we go forward with that, Martinez, let me ask you, if you had to take a wild guess, where do you think that you got MRSA from?
So I would say one of the stations that is the most like red flag, a situation where um station 169 on the F line had got shut down because they were supposed to be sanitizing it. We had asked for a safety resolution form back in July or something like that
Mhm.
because they were forcing us to work it and we felt like it was still unsafe.
You said it back in
They
July. You said July
Yeah, it was back in July
2024.
that they had, right,
2024.
to
Okay.
2024, yeah. So the superintendent came down and he said that if he walked the tracks himself with another flagger and a TSS, would we feel okay to work the station? At that point, we all fairly new. So we were just like, I mean, I guess we really didn't know. We were reaching out to anybody. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning. So we were reaching out to whoever would answer us. The superintendent walked the tracks. He deemed it safe, and we were forced to work it.
Now that's sad. Now, what made y'all flag that location anyway? Like, what was the hazard that was there? What y'all was hearing on the ground?
So, I'm not sure of the politics, the whole politics behind it. I just know that the station was shut down for a little bit. DEP had came down to supposedly sanitize things. So we asked for air quality test. They said that they weren't going to give us an air quality test. They sent out a memo, but on this memo, it had no signatures by any superintendents, nobody on top. It was just a regular memo with no names and said that it was safe.
Oh, okay. Now, Sosa, you mentioned that you felt sick after working a particular location, 169 also.
Right.
What was your experience working at 169 and what could have possibly you thought got you sick there?
As you mentioned before, and I think I said it as well on one of the last videos that we did, which was the piston effect. Because the trains are going back and forth, they are literally. I don't know if y'all see the one in question is back here. He's over here trying to eavesdrop.
Mhm.
um, Long story short, the piston effect, the train's going through the area and pushing the air back and forth. I know that while I was at my trip, I started to feel nauseous, which is a very rare thing for me to even feel. Um, I tried to hold myself down as much as I could, did what I had to do while the job was going on. Luckily, you know, before the job even started, checked my trip, disengaged it, walked up towards the station plat to get a little bit of air, and that's actually what quelled my stomach. Thought nothing of it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Thought nothing of it at all. It wasn't until when I went back to the same account number back on the 19th that I can tell you that shortly thereafter working that account, that whole week, and again, like most of us would attribute, it's funny because it falls around the time frame where it's allergy season. It was high pollen. You're not really thinking much of it. So I'm trying to basically soldier through, do what I have to do for the week, go to these accounts, do what I have to. Went through my days off, my RDOs, and from that point on, I thought I was gonna be okay. Went to fort training, which is basically retraining they have for construction flaggers. Shortly thereafter, worked another account, and that weekend, my body couldn't take it no more. It was like I had to take some days off extra because my body was not withstanding whatever I was fighting. So
Mm.
I tell you, I was running a fever and things of that sort. You know what I mean? Regular, what you would consider regular, like hay fevers, allergies, things of that nature.
So as Sammy mentioned earlier, when he first started exhibiting MRSA symptoms, he thought it was related to work, nothing serious, probably just dirt or whatever. And you felt nauseous. You just equated it to work, the
Right.
environment changement, the season changing and stuff like that. But then something happened in your home. But before I even get to that, um, what do your wife do for a living?
My wife is actually a construction flagger as well.
Just like you. All right. Now, something specifically happened in your home that alarmed you. Can you tell the people what that was?
Um, Shortly after, like I said, taking those 2 days off and going into my RDOs were spent in the yard with my son. Um, we noticed that he had what we thought was a nasal cyst. Um, we tried to basically, like Sammy said earlier, try to pop him, see if we can drain him as much as possible, and try to give him some Tylenol. And again, because the thought process is it's allergy season, maybe it could be kind of
Mhm.
attributed to it. Like most parents would think, hey, listen, maybe it's part of it. I gave him some Zyrtec. He wakes up the next day, he's fine. Um, when he gets ready to go to school on Monday, it's like his face is he just got into a fist fight, and you can see that the cyst is back.
Mm,
So we rushed him to the ER. They soon after admitted him. They had their ENT team, their ear, nose, and throat team come through. One of the guys that was there, one of the doctors, was feeling around, and they said, "Listen, apart from it having pus, it feels like it has a hard sac." Um, they had to do a miniature emergency surgery to basically remove the sac. And when they did that, they started him on antibiotic medication immediately. Shortly thereafter, he goes in Monday, Tuesday evening. He's released from the hospital, and we're still waiting on pending results. It wasn't like they told us, "Well, listen, just give him this antibiotic and he'll be fine." It's still pending, but the second that we get the results, we'll let you and your wife know what's going on. So my son is on the antibiotics by this point. Past that point, he goes to school. We're not thinking nothing of it. Come Thursday now, May 1st, we get the results in, and he's positive for MRSA.
mm. Now,
So
just to be clear, um, did Sammy ever have contact with your son?
no, not at all.
When you found out your son tested positive for MRSA, did you contact the school? What did you do as a parent to try to figure out where my child got this from?
The very first thing you try to do is you try to relate it to any places that's common. So you would figure schools, friends' houses, things like that. I have a next door neighbor who has a grandchild that my son hangs out with. At 5 years old, they go over there, they play at each other's houses, whatever. And I asked the grandfather, "Listen, is your grandchild sick?" He goes, "Nah, he's not showing anything." And when I called the school up, I asked them the question. I was like, "Listen, pardon me, does my son have, I mean, excuse me, does anybody in the school have the same symptoms as my son? Any pimples, any fevers, anything?" Teachers were like, "Listen, no, there's really nothing here. Nobody's got runny noses. Nobody's got anything there." You know what I'm saying?
Now, a common place where someone could get MRSA is the gym. Do your son happen to go to the gym to lift weights or anything like that?
I don't know if you can see right behind me, but that's my gym. ain't even gonna tell you that I go to Platinum Fitness or Blink because I don't get a chance to even touch my equipment that I got here. So
Got
as
it.
touching it, no.
So if you had to take a guess with everything that's going on in New York City Transit, how did you think that your son possibly got MRSA?
I strongly believe that it was from the job. We must have again. We try to take every precautions. I think everybody in construction flagging, especially because most of us have either young children or grandchildren. We try not to bring anything into the house that we would think would get anybody sick. So we take protocols coming into the house, meaning securing equipment. If it means changing at the door, it's changing at the door, meaning strip complete and jump. Bag it up, go jump in the shower. Um, it's the only other way that I would consider that even coming into this household.
Got it. So you took the necessary precautions even prior to this MRSA situation in your home to make sure that whatever happens at work don't come into your home.
That is correct.
Got it. So your son gets MRSA, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Uh, at what point did you contact the MTA? Like, what was your next steps after you found out your son got MRSA?
My next steps thereafter was being that I know how contagious it can be. My thought was, and I even said it to my wife, and my wife agreed. She said, "Listen, it wouldn't make any sense going in. I think we need to take precautions." And I agreed with her because I'm not gonna lie to you. I called. Basically, I spoke to the crew assignment section, and I let it be known what was the situation, and went out further notice.
Got it. And you and with your son having MRSA, and if you Google, people could carry MRSA and not exhibit any symptoms.
Correct.
Hmm.
Um, did you what did you do next? Did you ever get tested yourself? Like what happened?
Well, the one thing that I would say is in New York State, it's kind of funny because unless you have something for them to take a culture swab and let it cultivate, meaning let it grow in a lab under whatever extreme conditions for it to grow, they really don't take you. Uh, I went running around from New York Health and Hygiene to my actual PCP to New York Presbyterian back down to Harlem Hospital, and I was turned away at every point, myself and my wife. Um, we were fortunate enough to find a spot. You know what I'm saying? Even today, and I actually told you, Tramel, that I was supposed to get my PCP to actually do some blood work, and they canceled on me without even notifying me. So yeah,
Wow. So what you end up eventually you and your wife getting a test.
right.
What kind of test did they give? Did they give a blood test? Did they do a swab? What kind of test was it?
What I will say is they did a nasal swab. They test for the bacteriums, and it has a specific emphasis on MRSA. So pretty much right now, it's just a wait and see game. But again, like you said, anybody can be asymptomatic. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing with this. It's not like if you know because you're exhibiting a symptom and it shows, cool, but because it's not showing, that's when it becomes real problematic and real worrisome.
Hmm.
You don't know who you're gonna give it to.
Yeah.
Let's
And
keep it,
and
and we don't have too many people that have the greatest immune systems because we do have autoimmune compromised people.
yeah. And then not to mention when you are exhibiting symptoms, such as what happened with Mr. Martinez, you would attribute it to working in that environment because pimples is pretty common, especially if you're working in an environment
Hmm.
such as in the tunnels, the steel dust, whatever other type of hazards that's out there. So, Sosa, when you started making your phone calls and trying to figure things out, um, at what point did you hear from the MTA? Did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? How did that happen?
The only time I ever reached out to TA, like I said, was for the crew assignment section to notify them that I was going out for the notice because of the situation with my son.
Got
Um,
it. Now, yeah,
but
got it. Got it.
um, we did end up. Well, my wife actually was the one that they reached out to, and that was from OHS. They started asking generalized questions to my wife.
What kind of general questions?
How's my son doing? How is he feeling? Uh, Pretty much what were, if anybody in the household was exhibiting symptoms, excuse me. Um, Pretty much what was our protocols coming in through the door from work. Uh, what Because I did mention coming into contact, knowing Sammy's situation, and telling them that, listen, I was one of the first ones to know about it. I notified the rest of the union. Let's keep one thing 100% clear. I am not a shop steward. Jamal Thompson can tell you for that, right off rip. I'm just a person who, realistically speaking, listen, if my phone is always available if there's a situation and I think it's within my means to handle it, I will handle it and reach out to the proper people. Um, you know, it's a messed up situation telling somebody that, yo, information that you guys should have on hand, and then basically, well, can you tell me what jobs did you work within the time frame with this gentleman? And at that time frame, like I said, I remember it being between late February, early March,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember us being at one point outside waiting for the contractors, and it was basically
Mm-hmm.
getting cold.
Right.
And past that point, we did what we had to do on the job. We were in somewhat close proximity because, apart from talking upstairs, walking out to check the setups and stuff like that to make sure that everything is in its proper place and we're under the proper protection. That's when we had a majority of the interaction. Um, Past that point, like I had told her, I mentioned to her about Briarwood, 169, and those areas over there, specifically 169, working those accounts, and she just notated it, and that was it. After that point, the next conversation from OHS was when they reached out to my wife again to see if we were tested and how's my son doing.
Mm. Now, Sammy, we just heard Sosa say that someone from OHS contacted him and was asking him, how's his son, what locations he was at or whatever. You actually tested positive
Mm-hmm.
and you were never asked those questions ever.
Never. No. Never had asked any of those questions.
Right. So that don't make any sense. Like, so Sosa's son tests positive, don't work at the job, but you test positive, work at the job, and there's no type of contact tracing and no, not even a questionnaire to ask you, hey, what's going on? Nothing at all. We just want to get that
No.
clear.
Nothing at all. The only time they ever call me was to hand in some paperwork or to make sure that I sent something that was supposed to be sent. Anything it was everything that was spoken to me was about documents. It was never no questions about anything that happened.
Got it. Now, um, when Sammy, your case was brought to the forefront, and I commend you for being honest with your coworkers and coming out, and because this is very important, right? It
Hmm.
shows that you care. I appreciate Sosa for letting us know that his child got sick also because he did not have to share that. Um, Now during this conversation that we're having right now, I keep hearing 169, 169, 169, and there was an actual biological report that was done, not by the MTA, not by the MTA. We go get that clear. The biological report was not done by the MTA. It was done by the contractors. Now, Sosa, what do you know about that biological report at 169? Because you have said that you felt sick, nauseous after working in that area. Sammy said that he's figuring that he got MRSA from that area. And like I said, the contractors did a investigation of what's going on there because possibly one of their people got sick. I don't know. You would know
Hmm.
better than me. What was going on at 169 with this biological report, and why do you think that the contractors just decided to do these tests?
Well, what I will say is, already some of the stuff that you said was, there was a second air quality test, which is the one that you have and you've been showing around, which basically talks about there being 31 different airborne pathogens that are within that area. Um, The conversation was actually brought up to the union past administration. Um, there was something that was circulating around at one point in time in regards to trying to get the authority or at least management to actually get a third air quality test just to deem the job safe to be done. Um, that never happened. I know that Martinez had mentioned something earlier about a document that was floating around with no set emails. I mean, excuse me, with no set signatures from supervision signing off on the location. Um, that became basically how they deemed it safe for service, in other words. And, you know, a lot of us took that as, okay, how do we do this? How do we work on this? What do we do? Because at the end of the day, this is not, there's no way that this is deemed safe. There's nothing there to prove it. The only thing that y'all said to us was that DEP fixed the sewage pipe that was there. And pretty much at that point, that's all they were willing to let known. Um, as far as why these air quality reports came out, was initially you had two contractors test positive for E. coli.
Mm.
Um, and that's basically what warranted these air quality test results. And pretty much this is where we're at now.
So let me get this clear. The contractors, workers could get sick, and the contractors will be proactive to get tests done at these locations.
Right.
And flaggers who work for the MTA inside on MTA property could get sick, and the manager won't even show up.
Well, from what I haven't understood, because back in July of 2024, we had the job stopped on the regular weekday because the account number that it's affiliated with, excuse me, the account number that it's affiliated with pretty much can go anywhere amongst from 169 to Briarwood, Parsons, and anything in between. Um, whenever 169 would come up on our job map, during the week they were stopping it. But on the weekends, which here comes Mr. Martinez being the junior man, him and his peoples would have to work that account, unfortunately, not really knowing what was the severity of the situation. And it wasn't until one of those junior people reached out and said what was going on and how they were basically being told to go work. What's the problem? Um, it's an unfortunate set of events, and I'm not saying it so much for myself. I'm just saying it in general because the reality is there's a lot of things that are there that is we talk about MRSA, but there's a lot more seriousness than just MRSA that's in that area, and I think that that's something that especially your audience needs to understand that yes, MRSA is one of the biggest things, but we got things that are causing uh, lung disease in that area, stuff that can be detrimental to your stomach, gastritis, all types of different things that are there that are listed legitimately on this air quality report. You know what I'm saying?
And I had an opportunity to review the air quality report and do my own research. That I would challenge anyone to talk about this. Um, when the contractors got those did the air quality tests, and there was 31 different species of bacteria found in high concentrations. um MRSA was not tested because you cannot test MRSA in the air,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's also not any record of a follow-up test after it was cleaned to detect if it's whatever is still in the air, right? So we don't even fully know if it's rectified because the way the MTA works is that they will give you bleach and water for every type of situation, right? But if you're doing air quality tests, right, you can't tell what's in the air. And bleach and water only works for contact surfaces. It
Right.
has nothing to do with the air. Now, what I'm gonna put on the screen right now is the actual results of the air test and the actual names of some of these pathogens, right? So as you can see, you have E. coli, you have another type of staph infection. You have a whole bunch of stuff that could get workers very sick. And I see a lot of people saying that, everyone has MRSA. That's untrue. Everyone does not have MRSA. Everyone does not carry MRSA, right? MRSA is a staph infection, and it's one of the worst staph infections. There's a whole bunch of staph infections that you could get that you possibly carry, but everyone does not carry MRSA. Now, another thing I want to point out is after the contractors did this air sample test and they found all of these different species of bacteria, their recommendations was pretty clear. It says recommendations for decontamination and clearance sampling were provided in our May 20th, 2024 report and continue to be applicable to the site. If work should be conducted in this area prior to decontamination, the use of full face respirators equipped with HEPA filters, rubber gloves, eye protection, and coveralls would be recommended. Precautions should be taken to clean or dispose of PPE after use and wash exposed skin thoroughly before leaving the site, especially before handling food. Now, in my short time as being vice president of RTO, the MTA rely heavily on recommendations that benefits them. Now, we just had these contractors put out recommendations of full face masks, HEPA filters, coveralls, washing your skin, and a whole bunch of other safety measures. Did the MTA ever contact you guys to tell y'all when you work in that area that this is what should be recommended of you?
Most definitely not.
How about you, Sosa? Now, I'm going to ask you guys this separately. That situation at 169, how long was it happening before the contractors blew the whistle on it?
I'll let Martinez go.
I'm not
If you
sure.
know,
Yeah,
if you
I'm not
know.
sure.
I would say, as far as transit supposedly knowing, they are claiming 5 years. Um, Jamel, you and I both know that there is something that controverts that unfortunately I don't want to speak on. But you and I both know that that right there actually really talks about the timeline even further.
Right. Now, I had invited Sosa, Manny, and Hans to a meeting with upper management regarding Subsea, and this 169 issue came up. Now, I wasn't aware as the seriousness of 169 up until pretty much recently when this Mercer stuff started happening. But I did ask management. I was aware of what was happening, and I asked management a specific question of, did you guys alert the workers that was working in this area within that past 5 years to let them know to get tested, where they're sick or whatever the case is? Because if you got sick at work because of this, and like you guys said, the theme is if you're working in these areas, you almost expect it to get sick. You almost expect it to be nauseous. You expect it for your skin to
Hmm.
break out. You expecting certain things to work in that environment. It's
Right.
almost similar to like if you go to war overseas, maybe expected you may lose a limb. You hope not to lose a limb or something happened to you, but it's almost expected if you go to war. So if you're working in these particular areas, it's expected for you to get sick in some form or fashion, right?
Hmm.
So in that meeting, I had told management that I want a record of every worker that worked in that area the past 5 years to look at their sick record and make those adjustments because something happened there where the contractors got sick. And we know that transit workers are not immune to sickness. We've seen how the MTA handled COVID, right? And we would have thought after going through this whole COVID debacle that they would know how to handle um uh whether it's a pandemic or something like MRSA. We seen him drop the ball with Martinez. Martinez, to this day, according to him, has not gotten a phone call from the MTA to ask him when he worked at. But they asked Sosa, right? Now, something happened today, right? Where it's this guy named Carl Heyman, and I'm gonna put him on the Summer Jam screen because everybody needs to know who he is, what he looked like, because these are the people who make the decisions about our health and safety for the most part, right? So this guy, Carl Heyman, who I'm going to meet with this Friday, and I can't wait to meet him. He has sent this email to the president, right? And I'm going to read it because they playing games with us. And I ran off of transparency, and I'm going to hold people to their words and what they say, especially when you got members' kids getting sick, you got members getting sick, and you have a total disregard for safety on the property. So I'm going to read this email. I was CC'd on it, but he was talking about me, and that's why I'm reading it. It's the only email that I'm going to read. He says, "Good afternoon, John. First, clearly, the health and well-being of employees is paramount. Note that the information mentioned in Tramel's response is contrary to what the OHS physician garnered from the conversation with the two employees, parents of the child, as recently as Monday morning. That said, additional information may have become available since then." Now, I'm not going to read no other part of the email because he was basically telling me that OHS got a different version of the story than what I was putting out there. Basically, he was trying to say that I'm a liar. Now, when Carl Heyman wrote this, he said the two employees, parents of the child. He was talking about Sosa and he was talking about Sosa's wife. Now, Sosa is on this right now. Sosa, can you answer what was contrary between whatever they asked you and what I reported to the MTA?
Absolutely nothing. There's no contradiction there because it's all the same questions that were asked overall, which is the child is sick. Where do you think it's coming from? What are your measures when you come into home in terms of protocols? How are you guys feeling? I mean, there is really nothing that was any different, not even in terms of, like you just asked myself and Sammy, have we worked together? So nothing there is contrary. All of this has been as transparent as you've been. We've been without ever giving anything but what is the facts.
Hmm.
And the facts that are here are very simple. Somebody fumbled the ball. It is that simple.
Now, I want to go over the first sentence of his email again. He said, "First, clearly, the health and well being of our employees is paramount." Sammy, do you agree with that statement from the MTA?
Definitely not. If I agree, if that statement was true, then something would have happened. It would have been something. They would have either called me, they would have reached out to me, um, they would have tried something. It's been crickets on the phone.
Hmm. Sosa, same question to you. Do you feel like safety is paramount to the MTA?
No, no.
Plain and simple, no, right? So Carl Heyman, let me put his picture on the screen again, and I can't wait to see him Friday. Can't wait to see him. He tried to call me a liar. Who's actually lying here? Him or me?
I think everybody knows the answer to that one.
Definitely.
I think that
He
doesn't need to be stated because everybody knows what it is.
he's lying. So, Mr. Heyman, I want to say this. I don't take kindly to anyone calling me a liar, right? There is well documented that the MTA does not care about safety. We could use 169. We could use how y'all handle assaults. We could use how y'all force injured workers back to work by stop paying them workers' comp. We could use this whole MRSA situation. And we could use situations as to, and I'm gonna bring up a situation and you guys can expand on it. There's situations in flagging where the flaggers would see contractors in full Tyvek suits,
Hmm.
but the flaggers don't have that same type of protection.
Mhm.
Could both of you gentlemen expound on that to give us scenarios as to when this actually happens?
I could give you one example off rip, which would be, unfortunately, I had to basically put in a safety dispute resolution form for a job working at High Street when they were doing a lead abatement that was neither on the manifest nor a modified manifest for them to do it there. And unfortunately, by the time I had gotten there, the first shift knew that they were doing something within the area to stay away, but they didn't know to what extent. And it wasn't until, you know, TSS comes into the area, they are basically trying to figure out what is the nature of the work because it's a weekend job, of course. And when they come out there, you see clear as day on the flats that they got warning lead work being performed. And what really drew my attention was after the fact of me climbing from the bench wall into a void area that led off to 3 track, when I'm seeing them basically taking off the Tyvek suit. And I'm
Mm.
respirators are coming off. So I'm like, yo, what is going on? And I'm looking, and then all of a sudden I see the sun. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, cats can't be over here. We cannot literally be in this area.
So the contractors were protected, but the people who actually work for the company, MTA, was not protected.
No, they were not.
Right. Um, so now I want you guys to correct me if I'm wrong with this. You see a situation like that, Sosa. I've heard, and I want you guys to confirm that when people do want to exercise their safety rights with a safety rule dispute resolution form or challenge anything, and you have time on the job, you're an experienced flagger. I've heard that they will remove the experienced flaggers off that work site and then come bring like some rookies or probationaries to do the flagging. Have you guys heard of that?
That's how Martinez got jammed up with the situation over there at 169 originally.
Right. So the situation with 169, it was it goes by flag. We have flagging numbers. So the flagging numbers goes by your seniority, how much time you had on the job. So my flagging number is pretty up there, um, in the 400s, the late 400s. So everybody around my number is pretty much new,
Mm,
new to flagging, new to the MTA. Those people are the ones that are being forced, and we don't really know too much. We don't know how to fight the fight. We try our best. That day we tried our best. There was about 20, maybe 20 something of us that day, that night, and we were all fighting. TSSs were getting upset. Um, it was like a back and forth. That argument lasted from, I'll say, about from 10 to about almost 2 in the morning. Us fighting back and forth that we just didn't want to work it. Um, it wasn't until they said that they were going to call the superintendent down. They were actually threatening that they were going to call the superintendent. And we said, "Go ahead, call him down. We want you to call him down." So he spoke to superintendent, the TSS, maybe 3 times before the superintendent said he was going to come down. As I said earlier, once he came down, he had a talk with us. He said that he was going to walk the tracks, and if he felt like it was safe, if he would deem it safe, we will work. If he felt like it was unsafe, then we didn't have to work. He walked the tracks. Him, the point flagger, another TSS, they walked the tracks, and he felt like it was safe. So we
now,
all
was
pretty much had to work.
when was this? Month and
I don't
year.
remember. I don't remember the exact date, but I know it was back in July of 24.
So right around the time when that problem was happening at 169. When
Right.
did 169 actually got cleaned up?
That time frame
Okay.
had been late July, I would say, towards beginning of August, and I might be off with those dates.
So
Um, it's around that time frame. One thing that I will say, and I want people to understand something because I'm just going to correct something that Samuel said. when you cite a safety dispute resolution form, it's not that we don't want to work the area. It's that we find it's in direct controvert to the safest course of action 3.72G in the rule book. It's also a direct controvert to 1926 CFR 29 of OSHA. Um, it can even be as much as, like I said, use syringes. That's 1910 CFR 29 of OSHA, which talks about good house cleaning rules in terms of work site, construction work site locations, and even just regular household locations on terms of sanitation wise. So it's not of, yeah, I'm going to put this safety dispute resolution form because I don't want to work. It becomes, I don't want to bring anything home that can potentially kill me or any one of my family members. So until you can literally deem it to say, yo, the site is safe for service wholeheartedly, none of us would have a problem with it. Unfortunately, what it is we discovered this because it basically, for most of construction flagging, it fell in our lap. And when it did fall in our lap after these contractors getting sick, listen, the whole thing was at first, all we knew was it was E. coli. We didn't know how severe it was until that actual air quality report came out. So once the air quality report came out, that's when we realized the severity of the situation. And we said, listen, until you can sincerely prove what it is that you're saying that, yes, the site is safe for service, listen, none of us would have had a problem. What it is, they decided that, yo, bleach and water solution, it's going to sanitize the situation and you guys can go right back to work. Listen, you're talking to a former cleaner. That's how I started down there.
Mm.
Everything is not washed off with bleach and water. There was recommendations from CDC that tells you, first off, this is supposed to be regularly sanitized. There was a whole bunch of stuff that was there. And listen, to be honest, the ball was dropped on all sides. You know what I'm saying? Because from management not knowing what to do to, you know, truth be told, even the union not knowing what to do to even us, the actual employee not knowing what to do, because the whole problem here became you have one person who's stating to you, listen, it's not safe for you to go out there. But the
Hmm.
minute that memo came out, that memorandum, and said that, hey, the site was deemed safe for service because DEP came and fixed that pipe and you guys could go to work without ever knowing if it was even sanitized, because to this point we never saw anything in writing.
Mm. And then we know not we can't trust the MTA, right?
Right.
Now we never said what was leaking out of that pipe. Can you guys tell us what was leaking out of that pipe?
Human excrement, waste. Um, man, there was so much stuff. Put it like this: the water that was in between the trough, which is in between the running rails, for those who don't know, was as neon green can get.
Mm.
Nasty. All you smelled was basically human excrement from the second you got off to go work in that area. That's all
Mm.
you. That area was foul smelling, and there shouldn't have been a reason for nobody to be working over there. Period.
Mm.
That's just in my.
Now, just to back it up a little bit, because you guys said that a superintendent came, did a walkthrough, deemed it safe. When the superintendent did the walkthrough, was it before or after that spot was allegedly cleaned up, or the pipe was fixed?
So that was after. So after they had supposedly clean it, that's when they were forcing us to work. We were like one of the first groups that were forced to work right after the supposedly cleaning up of it, and the fixing of the pipe. Um, we brand new. We didn't really know what was really happening. There, like we had said, there was no signatures on it, so there was no way to really find if this document was true. Anybody could have just print it out, send it out, say, "Hey, this is what's going on." So that's why we kind of not that we refused, like Michael said, um, we just felt like it was unsafe, and they really kind of like forced us to just do it. They forced us to work it.
Now, we mentioned earlier, not too long ago on the show, like how you got to that location. And just to be clear, you got to that location because some senior flaggers refused to work in that area. So they decided to call some less tenured flaggers who possibly don't know better to go work in that area?
So it wasn't just like that. So what happens is that on the weekends, it kind of goes by your seniority. So during the week, the senior flaggers are allowed to pick their jobs.
Mhm.
Us high numbers, we just get the leftovers, whatever
Got it.
it's whatever's available. So on the weekends, it goes is kind of like different. We don't pick the weekends. So that actually happened on a weekend. Um, and it just went by our senior numbers, our seniority numbers. So it was just during the week they were saying no, they weren't gonna work it. The seniors weren't working it, and then on the weekend they just threw it on us.
Got it. But there are situations where more tenured flaggers will complain about a work location safety wise, and they will remove them from the job and put less tenured people there. Is that a thing?
Right.
They were basically stopping it. And what I will say is this, just again, just to correct things and get things on transparency and understanding. On the weekends, every flagger, no matter from number one all the way down to 525, in the B division, in the A division from 1 to 175, we are all extra, extra.
Mhm.
Only difference is that depending on what they call now tiers, and after the tiers, it falls into the seniority aspect of it, quote unquote, is how these jobs are basically distributed amongst us. Um, During the week, because we were making, somewhat, if you want to call it a stink about it, no pun intended.
Mm.
Um, we tried to get this job completely stopped because we knew the severity of the situation. So for the most part, senior TSSs understood it. They would let it be known. Then they were told, listen, try to move them to a different location where they're not in the area. So we would go off and work in a different area. Um, Unfortunately, like I said, on the weekends, because you have what the tiers would be, what seniority would be, and then whatever's left over would fall in rotation still of seniority. But you also got to keep into account that you have three different tours during that time frame. So depending on what they fall under, that's how, like you put it, the tenure flaggers would end up getting those locations. And unfortunately, you had some TSSs that weren't trying to hear what was going on during the week because they
Mm.
were just as tenured as they were. You know what I mean?
Got it. So I want to ask um a couple of rhetorical questions, but this is basically for the audience. Do you guys feel like flaggers are underpaid? Yes or no?
I let the audience answer that one. I ain't gonna say nothing. I'll be honest with you. Listen, my wholehearted sincerity about this is I think we all underplayed. Everybody who works for TA is underpaid.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of us are too busy trying, and a lot of us don't get the mathematics. The mathematics, if you really do the numbers, you understand, and I can only relate this to construction flagging. When you're thinking you're making money, you're making hours. To crack 100
Mhm.
by yourself a year, you have to be cracking minimum is 1,440 hours away from your household, from your rest periods, from the stuff that you need to do. Now, what I will say is we need to talk about livable wage. But the reason why you will never hear people say livable wage is because ultimately, what does transit run on? It's the imaginary carrot being dangled to everybody. You understand what I'm saying? So if we're gonna really have the conversation, we're not gonna just isolate it to us because it's the whole agency overall. It's all of us. We all deserve a livable wage. And I'm not just talking about, listen, when we start talking about 5%, you gotta look at it from what's the magic number. You know what I'm saying? We can't just talk about stuff that you hear the stuff in the news, you understand what it is in the news in terms of allocations to a set department and X number. But you also got to look at from the congestion price and what are they bringing in.
Mhm.
That's when you start having your conversations in terms of where you gonna get your actual raises from. And I really don't think that at this point, listen, if you want to talk about 3%, damn, three punk ass pennies. I'm not gonna hold you. Three punk ass pennies over a course of 4 years really does nothing for none of us, especially at the inflationary rate that we're living in now.
Hmm.
I don't know how everybody else feels. I'm only speaking it the way I see it, and again, I limit it to just my opinion and my opinion only.
Well, is it in your opinion that transit workers deserve hazard pay? Specifically speaking, sub C workers. That's
You
a
got,
yes or no. That's a yes or no.
you know why I say maybe, and I want people to understand why I say maybe. You got to understand the people that we work for, because when you say hazard pay, one of the biggest things that nobody's talking about down here is the fact that we have a lot of people that are starting to develop cancers, and they're starting to become, by the time they know about it, a stage 4 cancer.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So now imagine that you, the employee, go to the court of law, it's litigation, and you're telling them, I know for a fact that I developed stage 4 lung cancer, stage 4 prostate cancer, ovarian cancer from work. And when they come and they pull out the contract and they say, well, you got hazard pay, that's the end of the conversation. You understand? Because it's contractual by that point. So that's why I say you got to kind of be careful what you wish for. Again, it's my opinion. I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but that's on them. And I see one brother's talking about 10 years, July 27th, and still not at $40 an hour. Brother, if it was up to me, I'd be honest with you, we should be at 51.
Hmm.
51 is really the magic number. So, I mean, really, we really got to look at what we're talking about here.
Um, and I agree with you. So just to wrap this up, because this was a great conversation. I think this was a great conversation. I think this was one of my best interviews regarding transit talk. What does the MTA need to change with themselves to show us and the riding public, because the riding public is not immune to this. You know,
No.
there, especially at 169, there was this stuff was airborne, and the HVAC system in the trains uh recirculates that air that's in the tunnel. And just to
Hmm.
give you an example, if there's a fire inside the tunnel, they ask the train operator or the conductor to turn off the HVAC system,
HVAC. Yep.
because that smoke that's outside the train will come inside the train. And there's no different from having pathogens outside the train that would come inside the train. We seen this during COVID. A lot of people wanted to know why so many transit workers got sick, is because these trains and these buses turned into test tubes, literally,
Hmm.
right? Literally turned into test tubes. So what the workers was going through, the riders were going through also, and they probably was looking at it, hey, it's hay fever, hey, it's this, hey, it's that, whatever the case may be, and they were getting sick too. But what does the company need to change to show not only the workers but the riders of New York City that they're taking safety serious?
I would say bring back the humanistic level to the job, because they brung, see, what a lot of people don't understand, it seems like corporate America has infiltrated transit. And the reality of the fact is, none of us down here are robots. None of us are, emotionalists, don't have families attached to us, none of those things. You got to bring back the humanistic level. Apart from that, the realistic truth for the fact is, you have to start giving your equipment maintenance. And a lot of people are going to be in disagreement with me, because now, and I'm not talking about those who are watching this, I'm talking about management, because now you're talking about bonuses. Listen, I think it would be in everybody's best interest to make sure you have a healthy, not only riding public, but employee based. You know what I'm saying? You're making it to where, and I'll keep it to one key element. If you ever read the story about the sugarcane fields in Haiti, these cats used to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you really look at the history of it, they only lasted 1 year.
Mm.
And that's telling you where we at. You're given 25 years down here, right? That's your contract, 25, 55, whichever one of the two comes first. But you also got to realize that in those 25 years that you're working, anything can happen. And
Hmm.
then nowadays, when you go ahead and you get sick for whatever reasoning, they want to pacify you because now, oh, you're taking excessive days. And it could be warranted. You could literally have the proof in the pudding from a doctor signed off and on. They still want to pacify you like, yo,
Mhm.
why you taking so many days off? You're supposed to be here. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of people really need to take a good look in the mirror and say, yo, listen, up to what point do we stop putting money over safety? Because if guess what? It's not just safety you put in the money over, it's your health. Because health
Mhm.
Right.
goes hand in hand. People really have to realize what it is. I mean, other than that, I don't know. Sammy, you got anything you want to add into that?
I mean, the way MTA works is instead of being proactive, they're reactive. So I
Mhm.
think that was one of the main things that they needs to be changed. It needs to be some kind of proactivity from the MTA. They wait for things to happen for them to react to it.
I agree. I agree. So there is going to be a meeting this Friday uh um with Carl Heyman, who tried to call me a liar. I mean, these people are so sloppy with the way that they handle the business, like as if I'm not gonna talk to you, Sosa, as if we weren't communicating this whole time, as if I didn't let you know every step of the way what was happening,
Right.
Hmm.
right? And for them to boldly go into email and try to signal to the president of the union, your guy's lying, right? Because that's what they go try to do. Me and Sosa did a video on Instagram. It did over 200,000 views in 2 days. It went viral. And they have no answer to the type of transparency that I'm bringing forth, because this type of transparency was never seen in Local 100 ever. This is a fact, because there was never no platform for them to have, right? We seen them drop the ball during COVID. We seen them not clean our facilities. We seen them hide masks when we were asking for masks,
Hmm.
right? We seen every other agency get hit with a mandate, but transit workers weren't good enough to get hit with a mandate, which I'm not mad at. But it shows you that this state does not respect transit workers. This is a fact, right? And without New York City Transit, this place does not move, period. And we got to start knowing our power. And I've said this over the years. It's just like a man that's abusing a woman and she's beautiful, but he constantly dogs her. He tells her she's ugly. She ain't worth nothing. She ain't this. She ain't that. We are that. We that beautiful woman, and we don't realize it. Our power. We don't realize our intelligence. We don't realize our fortitude and our real worth in the city. And we allow the people that run this company to continuously tell us that we ain't shit.
Hmm.
Because for Carl Heyman to go on the email as if I'm stupid, as if I'm not on the email and I don't know what I'm talking about, it's not only a smack in my face, it's a smack to everyone in Local 100,
Mm-hmm.
every single person. And I'm not going to allow him to disrespect me, because if he feels he could disrespect me, then he know that he could disrespect you.
Hmm.
I'm not going to be one of those type of union reps that's going to go along to get along. I'm not going to be one of those union reps that's not going to be transparent with my members, right or wrong. When I did the thing with the police, I went up there and I said what I said. I apologize, right? When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I could own up to it. I don't duck, I don't hide. Oh, where Tremel at? Sosa, you've been calling me every day,
Yeah, literally
right?
every.
Every day. We
Yep.
have conversations on the phone. Like, people think that, oh, you know, reps don't do nothing, or they can never say I don't do nothing because I'm out there. I make myself visible. But me and Sosa be on the phone 2-3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right or wrong, Sosa?
Right.
Two to 3 hours. And what I would say for the flaggers out there, you guys are so lucky to have people like Sosa, to have people like Manny, to have people like Martinez, to have people like Lamb, to have people like Hines that care. But Sosa is on a different type of level. This
That's a
guy,
fact.
this guy bombards me with information, with facts. He does the research. He does the research. And I told Sosa when I first became aware of how he thinks and how he moves, I said, Sosa, we got to work together. We got to figure out a way how to work together, right or wrong.
Like you did.
I said, we got to find out a way how to work together. And Sosa called me, I think yesterday. We talk so much, I can't keep up with the conversations. But he said, Tramel, you said that we need to work together. Now you got it. So what we going to do?
Right.
Right. So
On these set of circumstances, but yeah,
yeah, crazy circumstances. But for the flag is out there, gravitate to Sosa, gravitate to Martinez. Martinez didn't have to come up here. And for the workers that's sick, because I spoke to, not gonna say their name, but I spoke to a supervisor who was sick. He told me himself that he was sick. He was exhibiting physical symptoms, but I spoke to his people. He said that something was wrong with his hand. How can something be wrong with your hand? But the man told me himself that he doesn't feel well. He feels sick, like he got the flu or whatever the case is, which is a symptom of what's going on. So, but what I want to say is that if you're a worker, do not be embarrassed to say that you're sick. Don't be embarrassed to protect your coworker. This is not HIV. You didn't do nothing wrong to get MRSA. This is all on the company. This is not because you are out there being reckless. This company does not protect us. And these things are going to happen. If you're sick, let someone know. Nobody's going to look at you like you got the cool. We not kids. You don't got the cooties.
booties, right?
Know what I'm saying? This is life and death for some people because everybody's immune system isn't the same. That's why COVID
Right.
wiped us out.
Mhm.
Nobody lost more workers in the whole country than New York City Transit, and people seem to forgot about that.
Yep.
Right? We're not going to allow this to happen again. We're going to hold the MTA accountable for every step they take. They're so used to abusing us. As far as that happening in RTO, those days are over. That's a fact. And I'm going to make it clear, I can't do this by myself. My reps, Drummond, Burke, Shumo, Nivea, Morrison, Cope, Perry, that work out there every day, Snack, Snow, who's released doing the work. We can't do it by ourselves because we are the union, and not the union that you elect in, but we are. If you're working on construction flagging, you're a train operator, you're a work train operator, you're in the towers, we are the union. So nobody is a spectator in this. Everyone has skin in the game.
Right.
Don't wait for something to affect you to say, "Hey, I need help. I need everyone to get involved." No. Treat it as if you're the one that's sick with MRSA right now and the MTA didn't do nothing, because we know the saying, me today, you tomorrow.
You tomorrow. Yep.
Right? Don't wait for it to be you tomorrow. Because if it's your coworker today, let's prevent it from being you tomorrow. And that's the mentality that we gotta have when we dealing with things like this. So like with Sosa sent me so much stuff, and his mind works crazy because it's like an encyclopedia mixed with a calendar and all types of crazy shit going on. Yo, Tramel, have you bro, you got resend me that again. And he don't get frustrated. He don't say, yo, what you doing? He say, yo, say less. Say less. That's his word. Say less. Or long to the short, long to the short, long to the short. Right? That's his thing. Right? But I need people like Sosa around to keep me sharp, because still sharp and still. If I'm weak, the membership is weak because I represent y'all. And that goes for every single rep. So for this right here, let's stick together. Right? And I got something special that I'm gonna speak to Sosa about, and Manny about, and Sammy about, and Lamb about when we get off this call. And I got something special coming up that we go do, and we go show them that we mean business over here. It's no other way. know what I mean? We not trying to have nobody die. We not trying to have nobody bring. Some people live with their parents still, elderly
Hmm.
parents. Sosa already his child sick. If his child wasn't healthy, that would be a serious problem for him and his wife, right? So we got to step up our game as a unit, right? And we're going to do that. And trust me, I'm gonna be right there on the front line. You ain't gotta second guess that. My reps is gonna be right there on the front line because people tend to follow how they leaders are. That's
Hmm.
just how it works. If they see their leaders going all out, then what's gonna be their excuse? I'm going all out. Y'all gotta do the same thing, right? And we go make something happen. I'm not gonna say when, where, how, but there's a storm coming, baby. There's a storm coming. And Carl Heyman, he might have earned himself a digital truck. No way you go call me a damn liar and get away with that. We gonna let your neighbors know what type of person you are. That's a fact. I'm expecting an apology when I see you Friday. I ain't even gonna say nothing. I want you to come out and say, I may have been wrong, but don't come with me with that contrary, none of that BS trying to subliminally call me a liar. I'm not standing for that at all. But I want to leave the final word up to you guys. Start off with Sammy. Any final word you want to leave for the members or you want the MTA to hear?
Um, I just want to say thank you for having me here. It was kind of difficult doing this. Not because I'm camera shy, but it's a little bit embarrassing, like you said earlier, for people not to be embarrassing, but it is embarrassing. Um, I actually didn't tell my close group of friends that I work with that this happened until maybe like 2 weeks, a week and a half after it happened. Because like I said, it's embarrassing. It was a day that I had to go to the union, and the gentleman politely kicked me out. And if I'm not a laughter, I would have been highly offended. I just laughed it out. I left and I just called my wife and I told her, listen, you know what happened? And I told her the story, but anybody else would have been highly offended. Um, Not being able to touch people, not being able to get close, us Hispanics, we're very handy. We hug, we give kisses in the cheek, so not being able to do these things is difficult. Um, so I do want to thank you for allowing us to speak our story. Um, and for anybody that I worked with, I'm sorry that if and also to Michael, I'm sorry for your son.
Appreciate that,
You
brother.
know, I hope it didn't you didn't get it from me, but it you
Listen,
never know.
I
You know
hold
what I mean?
nothing personal. I look at it this way. Unfortunately, it was destiny is destiny. Something's meant to happen. It's meant to happen. If it wouldn't have been me, who knows who it would have been. But if it was
Right,
my cards to be dealt with, it was in my cards to be dealt with. You know what I'm saying?
right, right.
The only thing that I will leave off with, and I will say is this: I thank Tramel for hanging in there with me and actually helping us out with this and trying to get the information out there. What I will say to all who are on is, listen, Tramel really did tell you guys that we are the union, and I highly do that. Remember one thing, and I'm gonna wait for a couple of y'all to mention on this. A lot of us have a tendency to say "fuck the union," and I want you to look
Hmm.
long hard in that mirror when you say "fuck the union" because you're talking about yourself.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Remember, we pay dues for people to represent us, but we are the union. And a lot of the stuff that has been going on for far too long is because we have allowed it to continuously keep happening. As much as Tramel knows, and I told him this a long time ago, I hold everybody accountable to every word you tell me in the letter of the law that needs to be done. And I expect everybody to hold it the same way. I don't care if that's your man's, you grew up with him. I don't care if you went to school together with each other. If they're not doing the job, then you need to pull them by their coattail and let them know, yo, this is not going to happen. It's either you do right or you move along. It's that simple. Because ultimately, we're the ones on the front lines. The only reason why myself and Sammy Martinez are out here is because, not for nothing, this affects all of Subways. And when I mean all of Subways, is RTO, it's Stations Department, it's MOW,
Hmm.
it's all of us, including and not limited to the writing public.
Right.
Understand where we coming from, because ultimately the message has to get out. It has to be known. Today it could be my son. Tomorrow it could be your abuela. It could be your wife. It could be your cousin. And the last thing that we need on this situation is for any more people to get sick. Believe me when I tell you, we were trying to stop this a year ago. And y'all know what happened a year ago. So ultimately, hold these cats accountable. If you see that they're not doing right, hold them to it. And one key thing that I will say, because I've seen this a little bit too much, I see people getting on these chats and talking about that, Tramel Thompson, he's just doing things because of this, that, and the third. Listen, I think I told Tramel this in the beginning. I was kind of hesitant to work with him because I thought the same exact way. You calling fire to smoke that's not really there. And I think me and you had this conversation. And the reality of the fact is, I was hesitant to work with him, but truth be told, after working with the brother, listen, full transparency, it's been no bullshit. You know, your man cares. And that's rare, because when you have a person who cares, such as myself, such as a Lamb, such as a Hines, such as Emmanuel Rodriguez, Dwayne Mason, Carlita Paris, Nicole Apollon, and all of us. There's a gang of us, not just that are limited to Sub C, because there's a whole bunch of people that I met on the road that felt the same exact way that I did. And you know what I mean? Unfortunately, we're the ones that are the oddballs down here because we care.
Hmm.
Biggest thing that we always see in construction flagging is don't fuck up the money. But what are you gonna do when you near dying? And like I said in the video, when have you ever seen a Brinks truck follow a hearse?
Mhm.
Can't enjoy the shit you're doing. So you really gotta mind, understand what it is. So that's my parting words to all of y'all. I hope everybody takes heed. Listen, for my construction family, listen, for my whole Sub-C family, for those who even work in those stations that I mentioned, and that includes station agent and CTA, for mobile watch teams to go over there. Listen, get yourselves checked. There's a lot of stuff down here, and I'm gonna explain something to you guys. This situation is not just limited to Queens. There are multiple areas in the system that are similar.
That's your final word.
My final word, brother.
I appreciate that, man, and thanks for setting the record straight. I mean, I don't understand how anyone could question my advocacy. I don't do this for show. You know what I'm saying? I lost my job behind this.
That's a
You know what I'm
fact.
saying? So this is not for play for me. This is real, and this is a hill that I'm willing to die on. I already got fired on it. I could have went to go do something else, to be honest with you. But I'm here. Uh, I'm glad you guys voted me in, and let's get it. Let's be the change that we want to see. And it's as simple. It don't take. It don't have. I would love for it to be all of us, but just some of us will be enough for us to push this forward. And shout out to Carlita Paris. Shout out to Mason, and shout out to all the flaggers that's out there that's trying to do something. And let's create history here. Let's do something different. Let's stick together for once. And let's try that. We haven't tried that yet. Let's try that. Let's try to stick together for once. But I'm gonna say this: the members voted who they want, which chefs they wanted in the kitchen.
Hmm.
It's a fact. They voted the chefs that they want in the kitchen. Play your position and let's make it happen. As simple as that. So thanks for tuning in to today's show. I haven't done a live in a long time. I couldn't ask for a better live than providing this information. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we're going to keep y'all updated as we progress through this MRSA situation and these other biological hazards that we're swimming in New York City Transit. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Peace, y'all.